Hello and welcome to the Engerati studio, and welcome to a good friend of Engerati, Perry Stoneman from Capgemini. And Perry, thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. Always a pleasure. And just to kick us off, just for the sake of kicking us off, you've got your European Market Observatory report. And Perry, I just wonder whether you could just reiterate the three highlights that you saw with it. It's been running for 16 years, so it's got history, it's fairly representative as well.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me again, Adam. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. It is our 17th edition of the European Energy Market Observatory. And there's some things common with previous editions, and there's some things that are a little bit new and changing and consistent with what we talked about last year at the European Utility Week. First of all, what's consistent is security of supply of energy. There is a challenge around that in Europe, and that has not changed. In fact, it's gotten more complicated with political events recently. You also have the COP21 that's coming to France here in December, and climate change and action against climate change is also going to be a major issue for the energy and utility industry in Europe. But what's new this year is there's a clear call to transform, that the industry needs to look at new business models and change how it reacts to accommodate renewable integration, to accommodate changing client sentiment and expectations, and to defend against new parties coming in that frankly don't operate the same way as the traditional utilities and could have a real impact on the classical utility business model's revenue.
And up until you reminded me, I'd forgotten when we spoke last year. And we probably should put a link to last year's video below this year's video, but we'll do that. But I, you reminded me. Asked the question is like, do energy companies need to be change the name, the way that they've been told? And thank you for that reminder, because they are, aren't they? I mean, they are starting to rebrand and try and become different.
Well, yeah, we joked last year about whether the name utility would go away, and I said, come back to me next year and see. And yeah, sure, there's you look at companies like GDF Suez, Fordham, they've all come out with new names. Alevio in the case of the new business network part of Fordham. You got Engie brand, and it's at no small expense that they're making these changes, and they're doing it in part to be that new type of company. And change the image of the firm, in fact, and change the businesses and services that they offer.
So, when we talk about this transformation piece, we also talk about sometimes the frustration that companies have when they want to transform, because sometimes you can say, I need to transform, but it's hard to turn an oil tanker, and some of these companies, my words, not yours, are a bit like oil tankers. Yeah. But you also within Capgemini, when we meet off air as well, you've done a lot of work to change the way, and companies like yours are a big part of the ecosystem. Change the way you work and have a more platform type approach to the market to enable that innovation, and that seems to be something that's coming through time and time again. We need platforms. We can't keep doing the same thing every single time from scratch.
Yeah, well, we did a study with MIT years ago. I talked about it last year that looks at digital maturity, and it comes into three categories: customer engagement, operational excellence, and the fourth is new business models. And if you're going to get into a new business model, you kind of have to do it the same way the startups would do it, or the high-tech industry would do it. And they don't start with bricks and then build infrastructure, servers, and they go out there and rent it, borrow it from cloud service providers, applications. And we're seeing in the industry companies like C3, Tom Siebel's new company, O-Power, really making a difference by offering a platform to a utility for a business outcome. And at Capgemini, we're looking at the same thing and trying to develop standardized platforms around the retail part of the business. We're looking at platforms around asset management. We have a demonstration in our booth of our product called DILM, Digital Industrial Asset Lifecycle Management, that we can collect data in weeks and provide answers back on asset quality and asset life cycle back to clients.
Because those issues must be very common for someone who comes from an IT background. That just makes a lot of sense. You're like, well, asset management in a very in a business that's very defined by the laws of physics must be very, very common. You can replicate that, can't you?
We believe so.
A
lot of clients will say I'm unique, and okay, they are. Yes. They're going to operate in different geographic territories, and their asset information, at least on a GIS system, would be completely different. The types of assets, the age of assets, that'll all be different, but the basic information about an asset condition, asset tag, its location, the history of its work orders, that's all consistent. So the metadata, if you will, or the structure of the data is going to be consistent. So the type of information you import will be different, and the outcomes you present back will be very different. But the platform itself is going to be 90% common, 10% customized.
And now let's kind of talk about the disruption piece a little bit. Because when you start getting people who come in with a whole sort of platform-based approach, and last year we talked a lot about the whole Tesla initiative. It was very early, but the Powerwall was just being thought about, but now there's announcements. I don't even know whether the thing is shipped yet. So, but enough noise has been made. Australian utility taking orders and so on. You're getting players who are coming into this market who are thinking about things completely differently. You mentioned it, and I saw it as well with interest. The Google Sunroof project. You can go to Google Maps and you can what energy capacity is there in my sun, or in my roof from solar.
Yeah.
That must be incredibly worrying, because there's just a whole new dynamic out there.
Yeah, I think utilities should be very concerned. Let's think about it for a second. You have companies like Solar City and SunPower having quite a bit of success with penetrating some of the US markets where there's incentives, but also there's a significant amount of solar radiation. And the weakness of that, the limitation of what they offer is that the sun's not shining on the panels at night and you can't have energy in the house. But their business model has been disruptive and taken revenue away from utilities already. Now put the battery in the house, and now you solve the evening equation, or at least a portion of it. So even less energy would be consumed from the traditional grid companies, and more would be consumed from your solar panels in your house. So that just extends the complexity. Now add one more element to that, and that's consumers don't understand what they're asking for. So you go to a map with a couple clicks, entry of your address. It'll tell you how much solar radiation's on your house, how many panels you could put in, what that translates to in savings in 20 years. And it asks you if you want somebody to come and give you a free estimate. And so with a couple clicks, a couple of keystrokes, you've demystified the whole notion of putting solar and storage on a household. We tested it, and we clicked, yes, send us a quote, and a company contacted us 20 minutes later. That's I would be very concerned.
It's quick, right? And then when you get actors like Google coming in, I remember when I was working in the Wi-Fi space, a lot of people say, how do we do citywide Wi-Fi? And it was, I don't know which city it was, I think maybe in San Francisco, so Google said, we'll just put it in.
Yep.
Because what they want is more people connected to the net. Yeah, that's the only outcome. And in that use case, all they will probably do is go, hey, are you a solar installer? We've got a new route to market for you. Job done. And the economics are just different.
And there's another point. It's a 20-year contract you're signing up for. So when a consumer makes that buy decision by 10 keystrokes and 5 clicks, they're gone for 20 years. And that's a devastating impact if a certain percentage of consumers opt for the solar and storage.
So now let's go back to this industry that we know and love and we support by being at an event like European Utility Week. And we talked about it a number of times about how are the utilities fighting back? Are they becoming energy services companies? Are they really starting to transform? Your report for the first time is showing that this is on the agenda. My question is it too little too late that this is now on the agenda for the first time? Should it not have been started like 5 years ago?
I don't believe it's too little too late. Maybe too little on enough utilities, but there are some that have really embraced transformation. Eneco, for example, we recently announced a partnership with Eneco to be their partner on the journey. They've stated they're going to become an energy services company. I believe they have 200,000 customers with home energy smart thermostats, and they have a design to get to 1 million. They're doing things around electric fueling. They're completely changing their company. In fact, our group head of sales at Capgemini, who met Eneco, said, they're kind of the Silicon Valley in Rotterdam of the utility industry. They're very progressive. You have others that are making major investments in the transformation, ENGIE, British Gas in the UK. And then you have others in the US that are fighting back. Tucson Electric, they won the right to put solar on their residents' households. There was a lobby against them having the right to do that, but they convinced the regulator that they should. You have Pacific Gas and Electric that are now offering that service and partnering with one of the potential kind of threats. So they found a way to cooperate. So there's quite a few examples, I think, of investments being made, choices to transform happening. And I think they have time because at the end of the day, they still have most of the customers. The vast majority of customers today are connected to the traditional utility model. The millennials will expect new interaction. I wouldn't wait too long before you start to engage digitally, the millennials. But I do think the utilities have time. But if they don't have a plan today, they should have a plan within the next year to 18 months.
And is there anything, again, when we were talking off air, you mentioned about how many smart meters Capgemini has been behind rolling out and so on. Is there anything that you can point to again sort of bring to life some of this innovation that is going on? And I had a conversation with a gentleman from EDF who say, well, we are actually starting to see ourselves as a data company. Well, that's a very interesting statement in itself.
Well, we've deployed 130 million smart meters, and some of those deployments, the companies are using the information to forewarn clients of a high bill situation, looking for anomalies, so a residence that typically isn't using much is using too much energy, obviously outage notification, and more efficient reliability restoration activity. So the data behind those smart meters is incredibly valuable if used. And I would agree that the utility of the future will be a company that worries about data and energy efficiency and energy services products and a kind of a new business model. But fundamentally, smart meters is the first step really in the digital transformation of utilities. Europe's a little bit behind in some areas on the deployment of that. I think we'll see a wave where Europe catches up. I believe by the end of 2018, it's estimated that 79% of Europe will have a smart meter.
It's supposed to be done by 2020, right?
Yeah, so they're going to get close in the next couple of years.
And just to finish us off, and looking again on that transformation piece and so on. Where do you think we need to go in this industry? And what I mean by that is not the same old question. What I'm trying to phrase is, there seems to be a lot more openness out there. There seems to be a lot more willingness to partner. There seems to be a lot more companies setting up ecosystems whereby they say, you know what, we probably will not find the solution, but there are 300 startups out there, and we want them in our family rather than fighting us. Is that the way that the solution will be found?
Yeah, we're working in San Francisco. We're just starting applied innovation exchange laboratories in the group, and that is to do the curation process and understand who those ecosystem of partners are. And we will take our existing clients and they'll give a problem statement to us, and we'll put that in front of the startup companies to propose possible solutions. These will be some of the technologies, the game-changing technologies of the future, I'm convinced. And to your other point, which I think is very correct, you need an ecosystem of partners. To transform an industry and transform a company, you don't do that internally. And there is no one service provider or vendor or technology that'll affect that transformation. It is an ecosystem. So I think the utilities that are making the biggest and boldest moves right now are selecting some strategic partners, and they're going to be in the transformation together for the long haul. And I think it's going to be a pretty interesting decade ahead of us, Adam.
And it's going to be one that's made out of partnerships and openness, do you
Absolutely.
think? Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. Perry, thank you very much. Thanks again for joining us, and thank you for watching. I've kept Perry a bit longer than I should have, so it's time for us to finish here, and thanks again for watching this interview. And there'll be a link below the interview to this report, the Energy Markets Observatory, and I'd encourage you to download that as well. So thanks again for watching.